Morning and welcome to Truth to Power.
Good morning.
And
Good morning.
we are looking forward to having a very, very invigorating conversation with a couple of special guests to be on this show. My partners in this endeavor is to my right, Letitia Sharp,
Hello.
and to her right is Norman Clement.
Good afternoon, good morning, actually.
And we just want to talk about bringing truth to power to the topics that are really engaging in the community as well as in the United States and the nation, for that fact. As many of you know, there was a debate that was held last night,
Oh, yeah.
and we know in terms of say this was a very important first debate because I think they had scheduled two debates to have for the presidential election.
Right.
And just to kind of get, before we get to our first guest, I'll ask you, Letitia, give me your thoughts real quick about what you thought or what were the takeaways that you thought from the debate last night.
Oh, I thought it was very, very interesting. I think it was kind of a long time waiting. I think everyone was waiting to see something. I'm not sure if people were really focusing on the issues. I think they more or less was looking at anything other than the issues, which is what we should be looking at when we listen to debates and things like that. So I think that a lot of the commentary I heard was perception of how they appeared opposed to issues and track records.
Okay. Norman, what did you think?
Same thing. We saw comments of one candidate that's just outright and just
Right.
lying, and another candidate didn't look like himself. I think that also I wasn't happy with the style. Normally with the debate, a lot of things with the setup, no fact checkers, no really pushing back on the issues, and there were some alarming things that were said during that time. I think one thing that shocked me was a candidate talked to Vladimir Putin before the invasion and after the invasion. And that right there was alarming to me. So a couple other things stood out also, but I think there's something that hopefully the second debate will be a lot more smoother, cleaner, but there's a lot of takeaways on a lot of things you could take away from that. So.
Well, let me piggyback on what you said about with Putin. I mean, it was interesting listening to number 45 mention about how he could go and get the hostages released, and that he could also go and pretty much like end the war. And he was saying this prior to him starting his term in office. But it was a bold prediction that he said because of his relationship that he feels that he has with Putin.
Yeah, it sounds like it's some coordination going on.
Right.
And not just a relationship. Let's understand that 45th president, former President Donald Trump, is under investigation for espionage, for selling secrets.
We can't forget that.
Yeah, we can't forget that. And
right.
so when you raised that alarm, we looked at are you dealing with secrets for getting hostages out? Are you exposing our troops, our men at war, our technology to other folks, and what's going on? That was alarming to me. When you have talked to, you're not even you're not even the president anymore. You're no longer head of state. You're having a conversation with a foreign entity who is invading on another country, and then you're having conversations after that, and you're supposed to be a former representative of the
Right.
people,
Right.
and all this going on with NATO. It is very scary and alarming to me, and I think that no one's picking up on that.
And I think, too, we can't forget we had documents that was taken from the White House.
Yes.
And so we don't really know what was not duplicated or taken or whatever. So that doesn't help the situation either.
Yes.
We don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
it looks like we've got our first guest on the show, and this young man, his name is Mr. Hester Wheeler, and Mr. Wheeler is the senior advisor for the Michigan Secretary of State's office under the auspices of the Honorable Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. Mr. Wheeler, welcome to Truth
Yes,
to
sir.
Power.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Mr. Wheeler.
Good
Owen
morning.
Griffin, how are you?
I am doing well. Once I hear your voice, I know I'm doing excellent, sir. But
You're a blessing, Black man.
want to kind of jump right into this. Hester, kind of give a little bit of detail about this is the presidential election in 2024. Talk about the differences from the previous presidential election to the current presidential election. What are some of the changes in the voting laws and the voting regulations that are going on, sir?
Yeah, thank you so very much for the invitation to participate in this very, very important conversation. Darwin, I think I commend you because you're committed to service and community. You're always on watch. You live your commitment to the front line. So thank you so very much for being who you are. Michigan has moved pretty much from worst to first with our new voting rights. And I think it is especially significant that we all go above and beyond to educate, organize, and mobilize. Same day voter registration, no excuse, absentee voting, drop boxes, early voting sites are all new voting rights. Prepaid postage on absentee ballots, the fact that we can register 16 and 17-year-olds early now for the first time in Michigan history. Michigan has moved from worst to first. The new gold standard, Darwin, for voting is early voting. 9 days mandatory, which includes 2 weekends, 2 Saturdays, 2 Sundays, the full work week leading up to Election Day. 9 days of early voting. That's the new gold standard, which means Election Day is now the last day to vote. You have co-hosts with you. I want to acknowledge your co-hosts.
Yes, I've got Miss Letitia Sharp, and I've also got Mr. Norman Clement.
Hello, Mr. Hatzer.
Sharp and Clement.
Yes.
Yes.
How do you do?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
But I want to
I
give
heard
them an
some of your
opportunity too, Hester,
conversation
to
as
kind
I
of
was
address some questions to
So
you
I
as well, sir.
appreciate sharing this airspace with you guys. But I love. I look forward to the feedback. I love all the comments about the presidential conversation last night. It's a lot to talk about, y'all. It's a lot to talk about, and it has huge impacts on how we go forward this year in this presidential election. Let me tell you a couple of other things too, Darwin, and you guys, Brother Clement, Sister Sharp, you guys jump in if you want. So way back in February, some of our friends, our brothers and sisters in the Arab American community, you guys remember they declared we're going to hold back 140,000 votes. We're going to encourage 140,000 people to vote uncommitted. You guys remember that?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they did it. It was the most successful exercise in democracy that I've seen in a very, very long time. They say, hey, if you guys aren't paying attention to what's important to us, we're going to withhold our votes. And as that admirable as that particular act of democracy was, it really provoked me, Darwin, Clements, and Sister Sharp. It provoked me to think, how many registered African-American voters are there in Michigan? If they know their number, why don't we know our number? And I would ask, either of you know what our number is?
Well, and that's a good question, Hester, because I know you and I had talked about that once before in terms of the number of African Americans, especially male and female, that are voting either in the primary or in the general election. But I know Norman has a question he wants to ask you real quick.
Yeah,
Jump
so
in,
just
brother.
on that number there, compared to white counterparts, African American vote is pretty much like, I think the white counterparts is like 68%, and our white counterparts we are probably at 64, 65%, but it's pretty close. But Hester, we have a GOT get out the vote problem, and I think you guys have done a great job. And my question for you is, how can the Democratic Party and other organizations help the Biden campaign to get out the vote?
Yeah. That's a huge question. Now, Brother Clement, were we together earlier this week? Or is that another
Yes,
Clement?
yes, sir. We were that there talking with the Secretary of State, meeting
I
about.
thought that was you.
Yes,
My
sir.
man. Boy, you do some good stuff, man. You're a bad brother. You're the black version of E.F. Hutton. When
Oh
Brother
man,
Clement
that's an honor. I'm working on
everybody listen. Hey, but so it's layers of stuff. So let me answer the first part of my question first, and I'm gonna come right back to what you said, Brother Clement. There are over 900,000 registered African Americans in Michigan already registered. The challenge is, to your question, Brother Clement, how do we get them to go to the poll? And some of what you saw last night is true. People are suffering. People are struggling. People don't believe government works for them. People are paying more money for gas and grocery, child care, housing, transportation. People don't feel like this thing has worked for them. And I am telling you, you cannot wait until election season and expect you're going to go out and tell people to do something that they don't have to normally do. Election seasons come around every year or every other year, and there's only 2 or 3 seasons during the year that people have to pay attention to voting. And most people ain't paying attention yet, like we are.
All right.
Most people, if you put them on the spot, when is election day? 80% of the folk don't know that election day is in August, and definitely don't know that it's on August 6th, or maybe it's August 5th, or maybe it's just in November, or maybe it's before Labor Day. I'm saying we've got a lot of education to do. But one thing we do know, Brother Clemens, Sister Sharp, Darwin Griffin, the more you touch a voter, the more likely they participate.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely, Hester,
Absolutely.
because you got to touch them more than once.
Right.
Yes.
There's a science out there. There's something about 5, 6, 7 times. If you touch them through text messaging, through social media, through lawn signs, through radio advertisements, through billboards, you remind them over and over and over again. But there's one way that makes a difference, and that's called personal contact. There's no substitute for direct contact. I mean, if you go in and to a barber shop and you shake a young man's hand and you spend a few moments listening to what his concerns are and his priorities, and then you help tie his priorities to politicians and politics and public policy, you can watch that conversation transform that low propensity voter into a active voter. You hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely, Hester.
So I want to add something to the conversation, particularly as it relates to black men. So I was listening to a lot of commentary after the debate last night, and Bakari Sellers, who's a CNN political analyst, was on there, and he looked into the camera and he said, black men in Detroit must get out and vote. And what do you think about that statement?
Wow. You said Bakari Sellers looked directly into the camera.
He looked
was from a
directly
national,
into the camera, and he said that
and you
this
looked
morning.
at Detroit.
Mhm.
That's powerful.
Mhm.
Well, he knows something that a lot of us don't know. Those of us at the Secretary of State's office, we spend time with Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Y'all know she ran for governor back in 2018, right?
Mhm.
And since then, she started this major voter mobilization, voter education initiative called Fair Fight. But one of the first things she told us is that guess who votes the least, Sister Sharp?
Mhm.
Who votes in the least?
Black men.
Black men.
Yes. So what can we do about
Black
that?
men have the power, but we won't use it. So maybe he was looking at Detroit because he knows Detroit can make a difference in Michigan.
And I believe
If we
Detroit
can
will make a
mobilize
difference,
and
right?
organize Detroit, get them excited. We've got I don't know, Darwin. I got to get Daniel Baxter to bring me up to speed, but I know it's way over 400,000. It's way over 400,000 registered voters already in Detroit.
And
So
you know,
nearly
Hester,
half of the 900,000 registered African Americans are right here in the city of Detroit. And then if you go up the three corridors, up and out the three corridors, go up 75 through Pontiac and on to Flint and on to Saginaw and on to Bay City and go across 94 through Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor and Jackson and Battle Creek and Kalamazoo and Benton Harbor, pick up Albion and Adrian, go all the way over 96 go through Lansing to Grand Rapids and Muskegon Heights. 80% of the African American vote lives in about 15 different urban centers.
And you know, Hester, the thing is that, you know, our show is live. So one thing I would like to ask you, we've got a caller on the phone that we want to try and dispel myths and some of the misinformation that people get. That's the reason why we want to bring truth to power. So we got a caller on the line real quick. If you can address the information that this caller needs to garner from you, we'd appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Gloria Jenkins Strickland. I'm calling to see if you guys are intending on having any kind of talk shows concerning everyday problems and everyday things that people might want answers to. I've tried very hard to get some questions answered, and I can't. And the questions that I'm asking are only being asked of politicians that have something to lose if they answer them. So I really would like to know if interfering with the democratic process is treason, why Donald Trump is not locked up. And I know that it's a political thing, but everyday people live under this political order. So if a felon can't vote, how can a felon run the country? And even if you don't want to have an interview to get these questions answered, or to get the everyday public's opinion, could you at least find some avenue other than me to get answers to those questions? Thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate your time and effort. Have a blessed day.
Yeah, as long as your right to vote is automatically restored as long as you are not serving time behind bars on election day. Your right to vote in Michigan is automatically restored. That is a very, very important question. All returning citizens have the right to vote. The day you are released, you can be on parole or probation, and your right to vote in Michigan is automatically restored. So thank you for asking that question. There are 8,000 plus men and women who come home from Michigan prisons every year. The Secretary of State's office, we've started a new initiative where we actually meet with the exit interview process, and we make sure that 80 to 90% of those returning citizens will have a state ID, a driver's license, and an updated voter registration card before they even leave those institutions, those facilities. So your right to vote is automatically restored. Thank you. You have the right to vote. Go to your polling place or go to michigan.gov/SOS. Put your name and address in. Make sure you know exactly where your polling place is. But most ideally, vote early. Get it out of the way so you don't wait until Election Day and avoid any potential complications that might interfere or interrupt you on your way to the poll.
And Hester, in the short time that we've got left, want to kind of do some rapid fire questions to you real quick. Norman?
Please.
Yep. So quickly, Hester, your dad's been doing a great job at the Secretary of State. I got my ballot in today, and so how important it is for our folks to really review that ballot front and back and making sure that they filling out the polls, their ballot correctly.
That is awesome. You got your ballot yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So that means 40 days before election day is when the absentee ballots are on the way. Yesterday was exactly day number 40. So the benefit of absentee voting is that you can take your time, spread your ballot out on your kitchen table, go from candidate or issue to questions, and take your time. Call your friends who might be politically astute or experts. If you've got questions or concerns about who these candidates are, who's running for these positions, you get to take your time. And guess what? You can drop that absentee ballot in the mail, postage paid. We've made that possible. You don't even have to put a stamp on it. And guess what? If you change your mind in 2 weeks, you can go to the early voting site, or you can wait until election day and go to your polling place and say, I don't agree. I don't want to vote for the people I voted for via the absentee ballot. I'd like to cancel that and vote here. That's the benefit of Michigan's new voting rights. You have another chance to vote, but you can take advantage of the absentee process where you can study the ballot, take your time, and you can go to the poll or to an early voting site later on and change your mind.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask kind of a question that's off key a little bit. So what do you say to those who do not do their research and then they're looking towards celebrities or, other folks to make the decision for them, particularly like, celebrities or artists or things like that? What do you say to those folks?
People who don't do their homework?
Right, but then they're looking towards a celebrity to make that political decision for them.
Yeah, a lot of us are like that. So I am saying, and most of us are related. Like I've got a plan this year where I got in my phone, in my notes, I have 2 sets of lists. I've got one called 25 under 25, where I've got 25 young people under age 25. Half of them are my nieces, nephews, and cousins. I just pay attention to them. And I've already been texting them saying, which day are we going to breakfast? Which day are we going to lunch? Specifically during those 9 days of early voting. I'm going to scoop them up or have them meet me at a Coney Island or a House of Pancakes so we can have breakfast, talk about politics. And all of us are going to an early voting site. But I'm going to spend some time talking to them about what's at stake. So I'm saying we've got to be creative with folk who may not pay attention to politics and politicians the way we do, and spend some time educating. You're related to somebody who's not going to participate unless you take them, unless you encourage them. So I think we've got some extra work to do. And if you get a copy of a slate that you respect, the black slate, the Faneuil-Hamer slate, the congressional district slates, whatever it might be, the Democratic Party slate, or if you happen to be on the wrong side of politics and you get a Republican Party slate, especially if you get it in an electronic format, post it on your Facebook page, post it on your social media page, send it to people that you know or that you think might not have that information.
I like that. Thank you.
And Hester, in the few seconds that we have left, can you give the information if somebody does not know where their polling site is or whether or not if they are still registered to vote? How can they access the information to find out are they still registered to vote or if they've been eliminated or purged from the system where they can't vote unless they register or re-register again?
Well, the beauty of Michigan's new voting rights, even if for whatever reason, if you haven't voted in, I think 2 federal cycles, and your name may have gotten dropped because people assume you may have moved or maybe even you died. But because of the benefit of same-day voter registration, if you show up on election day and they say, well, we don't have you on the list, you can register right there on the spot.
Yep.
Right there on the spot and vote. But go to michigan.gov/SOS or /Secretary of State and just click until you get to election information. You can type your name in. It will type your name and your address. It will tell you exactly what your registration status is. And right, I didn't do this yet, but it should produce the exact ballot that you're going to see when you go to the poll, or if the exact ballot that you're going to get if you are registered as an absentee voter. It's very, very informative. But do your homework as best possible. Do the research before you vote, and you will be amazed how Michigan, because of Michigan's new voting rights, we have literally moved from worst to first. Take advantage of our new voting rights, and remember, early voting is the new gold standard.
Well, Hester Wheeler, the senior advisor to the Michigan Secretary of State, we are very appreciative that you came on Truth to Power today, and you really did bring truth to power, and you dispelled a lot of the myths that people had when it comes down to voting. On behalf of myself, Ms. Sharp, Mr. Clement, we really appreciate you coming on the show today, and we definitely hope that we can have you come back. So the invitation is open for you to come back again to Truth to Power.
I will be back. Thank you so much, Brother Clement, Sister Sharp, Brother Clement,
Thank you.
Darwin Griffin. Thank you all. Let's keep fighting. And when people ask how long we fight, there's only one answer.
Till we win.
We fight until we win.
Until
Keep
we
hope
win.
alive, y'all.
Thank you, Hester.
Thank you.
Okay, Norman, Letitia, let me ask, so was there anything else that you thought that Hester really brought it to Truth to Power today? Was there anything else that you would want to accent what he said?
I think what Hester was saying is pretty much there is no excuse to access of voting in Michigan.
Right.
I got my ballot 40 days on the dot early. I could go through there. There are plentiful drop boxes, more all over the state of Michigan.
Right.
You have 9 days of early voting. You have pre-registration. Once someone who is a returning citizen, they get their IDs free automatically. So there is no excuse about not voting this year, no obstacle in the way. You could actually take some of your friends to the polls now.
Right.
And so those things are plentiful, open up there. And plus, on election day, we don't have to wait till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to know who won.
Right.
So they have done an excellent job listening to the people and saying, how can we access voting to make it more fair so everybody can participate on their terms. And I think this Secretary of State with Hester Williams and Jocelyn Benson have really, really gone to step up out of their way to improve the process.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the state of Michigan did an awesome job with how we have the opportunities are set up for us. Now we just have to motivate and get out there and do the work. And so when he talked about, getting the young people together, so we know how to motivate them, and then he talked about the people who are returning citizens. There are opportunities to motivate them. Sometimes, they don't know, or they feel like their vote didn't matter when they were incarcerated, so it probably don't matter now, but it is. It does. And so I think we have the provisions, the opportunities. Now we just have to do the work, and that's going to take all of us. The question I didn't get to ask him is how can media opportunities like this one support those outreach efforts? Because it's not a job just for one person. It's going to take all of us, like we said in the previous show.
Well, and I think that's the thing that he did mention, as you both are saying, the importance of getting out to vote, not just in the primary, but also in the general election. And not just waiting in terms of, say, for a presidential election, but even also in the midterm elections. So a lot of that, when as you were saying, Norman, about the returning citizens that may want to vote. And then also what he mentioned, too, as regarding the young people, if you're 16 and a half, that you can register to vote. Right. And the thing is that once you complete that registration form, then when you turn 18, then you can get out and vote. And what a lot of people don't really realize too is that you can vote as long as you are 18 on the election day. So there's a lot of people that are thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to be 18 the day after the election, no, that's not what you can, that's not what they're saying. You must be 18 on or before the election day.
Right. And if there's any questions about all of those things, we can go to what he said, michigan.gov/SOS election information. You can find out information on how you can or when or where you should be voting.
Yeah, and that's the important part, is to make certain that everybody gets out there and votes.
Right.
Because not only when you talked about the returning citizens, but also you're voting for judges, You're voting for state reps, state senators, city council, school board. So there's a variety of people that you would be looking to support on the ballot that could affect you and also could affect your children, as well. So that's imperative right there that you do get out and vote. Okay, our next guest is on the line, and she probably needs no real introduction because her name is Jasmine Harris, and Jasmine Harris is the African American media director for the Biden-Harris campaign. Ms. Harris, thank you and welcome to Truth to Power today.
Hi, how are you? I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are very welcome and we are very pleased to have you here on the show with us today. But let's kind of dig deep a little bit. Yesterday was the first presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump. What were your thoughts about the debate that we witnessed last night?
My thoughts are similar to Vice President Harris's thoughts when she gave the follow-up interview following the debate. And that's that, last night we saw Donald Trump for an hour straight get on that stage and lie after lie after lie. And what we saw from President Biden, even though he did have a slow start, what we saw was him lay out the facts. And the facts of the matter are this, especially as it relates to black voters specifically. During Donald Trump's time in office, he was a racist who divided the nation. He influenced the insurrection at the Capitol, guided it. The black unemployment rate skyrocketed under him. The amount of black Americans without health insurance was at an all-time high. Then you contrast that with Joe Biden, who made specific promises to black Americans 4 years ago and has made good on those promises. That's why we have millions of new jobs created and record low black unemployment and billions forgiven in student loan debt, working to, close the racial wealth gap. And so you saw the contrast between the two men, one who is a consistent liar, who doesn't have a record or proof of what he will do to make life easier for the American people, and Donald Trump. And then you have Joe Biden, who laid out the facts and who will be a fighter on behalf of making life easier for the American people. And that's what we saw.
Now, once the first debate has concluded now, what should black voters do to prepare for the primary and the general elections in August and in November?
I think you continue to stay informed, right? The good thing about these two candidates is that both of them have records to show. You have two men who have both been presidents before. And so look at Donald Trump's record. Look at what he did during his time in office. We have to remember that he couldn't lead us through the pandemic. We have to remember that it was because of his inability to lead, that disproportionately fell on black voters' shoulders. It was our people that disproportionately were left dead because of Donald Trump. It was our people, our black-owned businesses that were shattered because of him. It was our churches that were closed because Donald Trump couldn't get us through the pandemic. And then look at Joe Biden. He gave us a child tax credit that cut black child poverty in half during the pandemic. He gave us the checks to help us get ourselves through the pandemic and spurred job creation so that we can have black-owned businesses starting up at this historic rate that they are right now. And so you have to, as black voters, we get the brunt of everything. We have to be more informed than everyone else. And so really look at the record of these two men. You have one who is a proven leader, who is a caring man, who has put black America at the forefront of his administration, and Joe Biden. And then you have Donald Trump, who we know is a racist. He can't possibly deliver on behalf of our people when he doesn't even think we're equal to our white counterparts.
So what does the Biden-Harris black voter outreach look like after the debate? And how should we connect with the black voters?
For sure. So in August of last year, the Biden-Harris campaign announced the largest and earliest investment in black media and black outreach for any reelection campaign in history. This campaign really values black voters and the important role that we will play in this election. We are utilizing creative ways to insert ourselves in culture because we know a lot of folks want nothing to do with politics right now. And so it's important that we get creative in making sure that we're letting folks know that this administration has done so much on behalf of our people, and we need to send them back to the White House come November so that they can keep delivering. We were on the ground in North Carolina at J. Cole's Dreamville Fest. We did a huge investment at Usher's Lovers and Friends Fest that was unfortunately shut down But we would have been on the ground there. We're doing some engagement with the BET Awards this weekend. We'll be at Essence Fest the weekend after that. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. And then you're going to see the president and the vice president continue to campaign across this country and sit down with voters and really talk to them about the issues that they care about most and what they want to see done to make life easier for themselves. Because if it's one thing we know about Joe Biden, is that he's a caring man who wakes up every morning thinking about how he can make life easier for the American people. And if it's one thing we know about Donald Trump, is that he's a selfish man who wakes up every morning thinking about how he can make life better for himself.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm loving what you're talking about, the activity going with targeting black voters in the campaign here, and also you touched on so many points on the COVID outreach that you've done during the Biden campaign, and then and the other misinformation that's out there is that Trump, he caused the COVID when 2017 he came in office. He pretty much defunded the infectious disease department, and that's the same department that was fought against Ebola to keep it away. And also talk about, far as under Trump, 90% of black business owners did not get SBA loans during the time of COVID. And so, touching the highlight of how when Biden stepped in, the campaign camp stepped in, those SBA loans start going to black business owners here. And we just want to know, how can the Democratic Party help doing the outreach of organizations that are organizing in low turnout areas? What you guys could do to partner with those organizations on the ground to get the vote out?
Yeah, and so about a month ago, we launched our Black Voters for Biden Coalition in Philadelphia. It was the largest campaign event that we've had thus far on the campaign, a huge rally, 1,000 people in Philadelphia, black voters coming together around Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They joined together on the stage, gave a great speech, and then we had an entire week of action following that across the country, where black leaders, black community leaders, pastors, black business owners across the country joined the campaign to host Black Voters for Biden events. And so you'll see that continue throughout the campaign, and we'll partner with some of these key organizations at both the national and the local level to really get out the vote and make sure that Black America understands we have the most to lose this election because of the hard work of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris over the last 4 years. And so we have too much at stake to sit this out.
And we know that it is very important to get out to vote generally across the country. But I want to talk about Michigan specifically. Why is it so critical for Michigan to get the black vote out in this election?
Yeah, I love this question. I don't know if you all know this, but I was born and raised in Michigan. I'm from Farmington Hills. My mother born and raised in Detroit. My father born and raised in Royal Oak Township. My mother's a proud Cass Tech grad, and she won't let anybody else forget it. And so,
well, let her know that she's got a fellow Cass Tech graduate here on the set with us.
Okay, I will for sure. And so, Detroit, it's a black city. It's a historical black city. It's Motown. It's the home of Motown and the home of so many black pastors of influence, black entrepreneurs of influence, and lawyers of influence. It's just an influential black city, and Michigan is a hard-working state. And so because of the different nuances and the diversity of the state, it's just very important to this campaign. It's a battleground state, as you all know. And so the president will be here often when we talk about SBA loans and the money that this administration has provided for black-owned business owners. He was just here in Detroit about a month ago in downtown Detroit at a black-owned business. A former NBA player, Jordan Crawford, and his brothers, black men doing amazing work. And so it's a very important city to us. It's a very important city to the president and the state of Michigan as a whole. He has an amazing relationship with our amazing governor, Big Gretch. And so he'll be there a lot. She's campaigning across the state on his behalf because Michigan, like I said, it's a hardworking state. It's a lot of hardworking middle-class people who deserve a president that's going to deliver for them. And the only candidate in this election who cares about the middle class, who cares about the hardworking everyday American, is Joe Biden.
Yep, and the thing about what I love is that you guys are actually doing the combating misinformation. The thing I hate going out in the community is saying, well, I got that $1,600 check from President Trump. Well, too many people had to die for that $1,600 check. Right. And so where could we go to the website of Where can we go to get factual information about the Biden-Harris campaign and platforms that you guys are on right now?
For sure. I think, you start off with the White House website. I think people, sometimes it's confusing. So the campaign is separate from the White House and the actual administration. But if you go to the White House website, they have fact sheets of all of the executive orders that the president has done, all of the legislation that he has signed, all of the legislation that relates directly to the Black community is on that website. It's online. Look at the executive orders that he did around, police reform as a result of, young Black people across the country galvanizing us to demand action after the horrible murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. Look at all of the federal investments that he has spearheaded for Black-owned small businesses. Look at all of the billions that he has invested in our nation's HBCUs, the billions forgiven in student loan debt, and how that directly works to close the racial wealth gap. Look at how he's been able to close the racial wealth gap by 60% during his time in office. How Vice President Harris has brought the Black maternal health crisis elevated it to the forefront of the White House. Right now, a Black mother, and this one hits close to home for me as a mother of a 3-year-old who went through my own complications during childbirth, a Black woman is 3 times more likely to die of pregnancy-related complications than a white woman in this country right now. We can't have that. Donald Trump, brags about overturning Roe v. Wade. All that does is make the delivery room less safe for Black women, because now doctors will be punished or jailed if they give Black women the life-saving care that we need during the delivery process. And so all of these issues that directly relate to our community and our betterment, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have brought to the forefront and have delivered on. And they need 4 more years to continue delivering on that work. So go to the website, check out all that they have done and all that they will continue to do once we send them back to the White House in November.
Yeah. So I want one last question for you, Jasmine. Talk to the voters that won't do the research, but will depend on celebrities or rap artists or whoever to be like their political guide in this process. What do you say to those folks?
Well, one, I would say, I think that no matter if you are, if you have an injury, if you have a knee injury, you don't go to a heart surgeon, you go to a knee expert. So you can't go to rappers or celebrities there are some that are informed and politically involved, and they have the knowledge to be able to put the information out there, but not all of them. And so I would say to that person, you have to be specific about and educated about where you're getting your information from. And me, I'm a campaign head, right? And so even if you don't come to me, there are websites and there's information out there from bipartisan sources that lay out the facts as far as who has delivered for you and your well-being and who has actively worked against you. And what that is going to tell you is that Donald Trump has actively worked against the betterment of Black people since the beginning of his career. He literally came into life as a businessman, refusing to rent apartments to Black folks in New York. He then follows that up by taking out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the death penalty of 5 innocent Black boys at the time in the Central Park Five. He then gets into the White House and spikes up the Black unemployment rate. And is a racist. He, incites the insurrection at the Capitol, a complete embarrassment for our nation. Look at Donald Trump's record. He has actively worked against the betterment of Black people because he is a racist since he came into public life. And when you look at Joe Biden, from being, playing second fiddle to the first Black president and getting all and supporting Obama and all that he accomplished, to now being president himself, making sure that his vice president is the first Black woman vice president, then going ahead and putting the first Black woman on the Supreme Court, then going ahead and putting forth policy that puts us at the forefront at our betterment and closes the racial wealth gap by 60%. When you look at the records, it's no comparison as far as who Black voters should be getting behind. And you have to have the right sources to be able to make that decision that are bipartisan, but they're going to tell you the facts, and just like I laid them out.
Thank you. That's great.
Yes, and I think that we really want to stress about how can local media be an aid in that portion, because a lot of times our media just want the drama, I think, and misinformation goes flying. So how can we hold the media a little bit better accountable for the accurate information out there, especially towards the campaign and towards even with surrogates?
Yeah, we have a great Michigan communications team who the national team is working with all the time. So as many folks that we can get on your show to get the information out there, we're happy to provide. And we know that you all are some educated folks who will also get the message out there to people. But continue doing the work that you're doing. We have a summer ahead of us, a long summer of campaigning, and we will continue getting the message out there so that Black America understands that we have the most at stake. We cannot afford to sit this one out.
Well, and that's we're very appreciative of you saying that too, Ms. Harris, because of the fact that we want to do as much as we can to try and make a seamless delivery of the services that you and the Biden-Harris campaign want to deliver here in the state of Michigan. So whatever we can do through Watkins television as well as through WHPR, we are definitely on board with trying to make certain that we bring truth to power to anything that the Biden-Harris campaign is trying to go and disseminate out to African Americans as well as the other public that listen to our station, from any ethnicity to any economical or any other voting constituency that needs to hear this. But one last question I wanted to ask you before we let you go is that when you look at the way that the Biden-Harris campaign has been doing the work out in the community, what else do you think that we as the media outlets can do to assist in making certain that we get this delivery of your services out, besides having you or having someone else from the Biden-Harris campaign to come on WHPR TV and promote their interests?
I think one thing that I often hear our surrogates and even our principals and the president and the vice president say is that, as a people, we always, you're going to trust what your sister or your brother or your cousin or your friend tells you. Across the board, as human beings, this is how we operate. We trust those who we know. And so just continuing to have conversations with your loved ones, your family, your friends about the importance of this election, about all that is at stake, so folks really have the right information and we're energizing each other. Like, I have family members, I'm not going to vote, or, I'm going to vote this way because of this. You got to let people know the facts that are out there and what's really going on so that everyone can make a sound decision that really puts into perspective and puts America in a great standing. And the only way we do that is by sending Joe Biden back to the White House, because we know Donald Trump should be kept as far away from the White House as feasibly possible. And that was on display last night.
Well, and one, I just thought about something when you just said that, when you just made this statement, is that there's a lot of people right now that feel very comfortable about seeing another 4 more years of the Biden-Harris administration. But the question that I just want to bring up too is that there are some people that are feeling like, hey, that they want to see the Biden administration to go and direct policies, especially to the African American voters, to try and garner their vote. What would you say, just to kind of give a few minutes of just the passion that you would have to getting the African American voter to come out and vote? Because especially we're seeing that there are some voters that may be undecided about who they're going to support. And we looked at the debate last night, and we know that there was a lot that was said to try and encourage African Americans to get out and vote. But what particularly does the Biden-Harris campaign want to do to really, really encourage African Americans to get out and vote, especially Black men?
Yeah, this is the fact right here. There is no administration in modern history that has done more for the success of Black people than this Biden-Harris administration. Millions of jobs created for Black workers. We have record low Black unemployment. We have Black-owned small businesses starting up at the fastest rate in generations. We have billions forgiven in student loan debt, closing the racial wealth gap. The racial wealth gap has been closed by 60% under Joe Biden. We have more Black Americans with health care than we've ever had before. We have $16 billion invested in our nation's HBCUs, which are responsible for between like 60 and 80% of Black doctors, lawyers, teachers, healthcare professionals. You have the first Supreme Court, black woman Supreme Court justice ever. Joe Biden has confirmed more black women to the federal bench than all other presidents combined. You have the most diverse presidential cabinet in history. With numbers like this, you would think that Joe Biden was black. He has truly put black America at the forefront of his administration. There's no other administration in modern history that can list off statistics like that to talk about how they had delivered for black America. No other administration. We are a show me people. We want the proof. That's the proof.
That's the proof.
And that is only going to continue. I didn't even mention during the pandemic, cut black child poverty in half. He cut it in half during the pandemic with the child tax credit. And what does he want to do with 4 more years? He wants to bring it back to make sure that black mothers have what they need to be able to take care of their families, and black fathers. He has put us at the forefront. Look at his cabinet. Joe Biden, when he gave the speech at Morehouse, he said, I have more Morehouse men telling me what to do on a daily basis than I know what to do with. Black men are leading the administration. Right now on the campaign, our deputy principal campaign manager is a black man. Our communications director is a black man. Cedric Richmond, the campaign co-chair, is a black man. The vice president is a black woman. His Supreme Court justice nominee was a black woman. I mean, he truly has put us at the forefront, and that progress is only going to continue with 4 more years.
Right.
If we put Donald Trump back in the White House, everything that I just mentioned, all of that progress, the 60% work to close the racial wealth gap, all of that is going to be gone like that.
Well, you really bring truth to power when you say that, because it sounds like you're saying, in essence, to worry less but do more. And that's what it seems like the Biden campaign does when it comes down to making certain that everybody should not go and think that there's anything that could be done that hasn't been done. And then you're putting not just 100%, but you're putting 120% into everything you do. Ms. Harris.
120%, but I just want to say this last point. We are not saying this as if every black person across the nation is fine and dandy and doing well. We know that there's so much work to be done, which is why we're campaigning how we're campaigning. Because we do need 4 more. You can't fix everything in 4 years. We do need 4 more years to continue building on that and to continue progressing. Because there are some folks who haven't had their student loans forgiven. There are some folks who haven't been able to get one of the millions of jobs that Joe Biden has created. There are some folks that are still out there struggling. We need 4 more years to continue delivering for those people.
Well, if somebody wants to do more, what can they do in terms of, say, is there a website or that you can suggest or you can recommend to anyone that wants to assist if they want to donate to the campaign? What can they do to go and assist the Biden-Harris campaign?
Yeah, I would start off by going to the Biden campaign website. I will go to the White House website to get more information on all of the ways that this administration has delivered on our behalf. And like I said, I will have conversations with your family and friends. We all have too much to lose this election, and none of us can afford a racist, a 35-time convicted felon, a liar like Donald Trump to be back in the White House.
Well, Ms. Harris, we really appreciate you coming on Truth to Power, and we hope that you will continue to support us when it comes to making certain that we support you and all of the efforts and the initiatives that the Biden-Harris campaign is trying to do. So we definitely open an invitation to you to come back, and any other members from the Biden-Harris campaign to come back and be a member and a part of our station in terms of disseminating the information out that we can.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Continued success in all of your endeavors and everything that you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay,
Wow.
that was a power-packed hour
It was.
that we had
It
with
was.
2 fantastic guests.
Much
But
needed.
let me ask you, Letitia, what are your takeaways from the guests that we had today?
Oh, I think I have a lot of work to do and a lot of things to do in my own community. Go out, motivate is what I got. The overall is to get out. We have to tap into our resources to get the votes out We got to tap into our resources to get people motivated to vote and remind them that the stage is already set, and we can't take anything for granted. We got to believe when people tell us, like we said in the last show, when people tell us who they are, we have to believe them. And most importantly, when they show, we have to believe them. And this is the first time we had a little bit of conversation. This is the first time we have two presidents, two men that are running for the office of president who has a history of being president. So we don't have to think about what they're going to do. We can go back and look at their past track records. Like our last caller just said, is that the proof is there. We just have to go and see it. We have to go and look at it, and that's it. Don't believe the lies. Believe what you know.
And I'm only going to give a step further. What I saw last night from former President Trump lets me know there is no 26. There is no other options. If that man gets back in the office again, there is no 26. There's no midterms. There's no anything else. He will make it a way where he will obliterate any type of democracy that he has. And so right now, literally, the democracy is on the line. And so if folks get out to vote, understand what's going on out here, because this is it.
This is it.
Well, I do want to thank you, Norman Clement. I want to thank you, Letitia Sharp, for coming on the show today with us, and our guest, Mr. Hester Wheeler, and also Ms. Jasmine Harris. So we definitely want to make certain that whatever you do, whatever you encourage someone to do, make sure that you take yourselves to the polls and take others to the polls if you can as well. We want to thank you for watching this episode of Truth to Power, and we look forward to seeing you again in the very, very near future. Again, whatever you do, vote August the 6th, November the 5th. Please vote.
See you at the polls.
See ya.
Thank you.